Hello, and welcome back, roommates, to another titillating edition of Alexa's.
How good is that?
And on the 7th day of Gretchmas, my true love gave to me a clap back from David Yannetti. Yeah. Hey, at Linda Pizzuti, do you have any editors these days at Boston Magazine, or have they all taken the summer off? While I will anxiously await the correction, you must publish to the shoddy reporting of at Gretchen Voss 64. Update. Correction made. Did she actually graduate from journalism school? And does at Boston Magazine actually vet their reporters at all before hiring them? Ouch. So unless you've been held captive inside the Alexasrewm bus with the likes of Kate Peter and the rest of the intellectually inept random Midwest housewives, you know that this time last week, Boston Magazine published the digital version of this absolute comedy of errors authored by Gretchen Voss, titled Inside the Campaign That Acquitted Karen Reed, where she basically tries to pin the whole thing on the girl, the turtle, and the federal government. All because Karen Reed was apparently in Spanish Honor Society with the wife of one of the prosecutors who once worked alongside Adam Deitch, and now Karen Reed's come to collect on some sort of favor that she's been owed. Peruti and Reed went to high school together and were both in the Spanish Honor Society, according to a yearbook photo which I neglected to provide in this article, and were recently, until it was revealed on social media, Pinterest friends, because you just know how popular and active people are on the platform Pinterest. Indeed, Reed reportedly went to the wedding of Anne's sister, Trisha, who was also in the Spanish Honor Society with them. But was she their ring bearer? Funnily enough, I was actually in Spanish Honor Society in high school myself, and I never went to a single meeting, nor could I name any person who was also in Spanish Honor Society with me. Still got the cord and the graduation photo up, but I guess that's all it takes these days to launch a federal conspiracy. And we're the crazy ones. Now, one thing you will notice, aside from the fact that this reads less like an investigative journalism piece and more like a fanfic written under the Normal Moms tag on AO3, is the complete lack of yearbook photos, screenshots, receipts, and people willing to go on the record to contribute to this piece, except for Jem McCabe and the Voodoo Dolls, Mr. Meat Sweats, and the chick who once ran over an old man in a bright yellow reflective vest during his evening stroll in her police-issued SUV, and then tried to get the lawsuit dismissed against her for hitting the elderly man in the bright yellow reflective vest by claiming that she has immunity because she wrote a work-related email in the TJ Maxx parking lot before the incident. Some might say the casting on this thing might be worse than the casting choices on the Odyssey. And like I mentioned at the top of my last video, within about 48 hours of this thing going live, 2 corrections were already issued. One that was personally requested by David Yannetti. This story has been updated to accurately reflect that Aidan Carney's phone extraction became public via his now former girlfriend, Meredith O'Neill. The story has also been updated to remove any ambiguity about the context of a message from defense attorney David Yannetti to Carney. When Yannetti wrote, "These bastards deserve all the scorn we are giving them," he was referring to the Massachusetts State Police. How long can this thing get before it becomes a complete retraction and then they dirty delete it from the interwebs forever? That's the beauty of print. And if you recall, King David has already addressed this publicly on one of Turtle Boy's previous YouTube presentations alongside Melanie Little, specifically about who he was referring to when he said this.
It has been a month now. I wonder how much time they've invested in finding whoever was driving that Ford Edge. And you respond by saying, so true. These bastards deserve all the scorn we are giving them. So who are the bastards? Who are the bastards?
You guys answer that.
It's the MSP, not the House defense.
Yeah.
Of course it is. Of course it is. I've never called the witnesses bastards or any. And by the way, this is a private text message, not for public consumption. But it doesn't matter. From the beginning, if you, I mean, your extractions on the internet, they can see the whole conversation between us. And if I could characterize that conversation, Aiden, it's two guys doing a different job, talking about how we can expose corruption.
And after the obvious prejudice expressed against his client,
she's got a leaky balloon knot,
along with some additional choice words about King David himself, from Michael Prostate to his group of white supremacist Nimrods.
How do you feel about him now? He's sitting right there.
I still don't care for him now.
It's not exactly difficult to figure out who David Yannetti was talking about, or why he might have some choice words for Michael Proctor, as well as the other investigating officers. And apparently the World Wide Web agrees, adding this community note to Gretchen Voss's tweet sharing her article. David Yannetti was referring to law enforcement who never looked into the Ford Edge that was parked where John O'Keefe's body would later be found, not witnesses, when he texted, "Those bastards deserve all the scorn we are giving them. Sorry, Jen. It's not all about you." Now, you would think that having one of the most well-respected defense attorneys in New England publicly calling out one of your journalists over a very poorly researched digital butt napkin just 2 days after it goes live would be enough to make someone blush. Maybe even enough to quietly retract the thing, or at least publish a competing perspective. But oh no, they decided to double down. 4 of the witnesses in the case, represented by Chris Maitai, the attorney who won a $1.4 billion defamation award against ex-InfoWars honcho Alex Jones, have now filed a defamation lawsuit against Reed and Carney. The piece includes their account in their own words of what the last 3 years have cost them, because they're the only ones who would go on record to share their own words. Again, aside from Mr. Meat Sweats and the chick who had to step down from chief of police and is being sued for hitting an elderly man with her police-issued vehicle. And as you can imagine, it's not really taking too well with the public. My home slice fervent, make sure you give them a sub on the YouTube, says, medically speaking, there is a higher probability that John was attacked by a shark than hit by Alexis. Boston Magazine wants everyone talking about Turtle Boy's phone, but I'd much rather see Brian Higgins and Brian Albert's phones, the butt dial twins. Too bad they got rid of the phones they were using when John O'Keefe died and turned over replacement phones instead. Correction, the feds never said the investigation is over. My Thai takes it in the storefish. And while we simply just don't have the time to debunk every single lie, because there are honestly too many to fill into one 40-minute video, like how an anonymous juror told her there was a bouncy house outside of the courthouse. When they peeked through the blinds, they could see it all, including at one point a bouncy house and a lobster food truck. The field transformed into something resembling a circus. Many of them reported it all to the court officers, but nothing was done to stop it. We kept saying, I can't believe they're letting this happen, the anonymous juror says. It's interesting considering how since the last 2 trials, a handful of jurors have come forward on major news stations and given interviews on the record. And not a single one has ever mentioned a bouncy house and a lobster food truck. And thanks to Emily C., who also made an appearance in Gretchen's article, debunked this fairly quickly. It seems like the bounce house was from some sort of summer camp across the way from the courthouse. Hardly the scandal of the century. Dedham Community House. Something big is taking shape at DCH Summer Camp. This was posted on July 1st. Our team is getting the giant inflatable water slides ready before campers arrive. With today's hot temperatures, they're in for a great day of splashing, laughing, and staying cool. God forbid the kids stay cool in the summer. The juror also recounted what another juror had described. His wife had told him that Carney was assigning nicknames to each of the jurors. Just knowing that was really uncomfortable and not cool, the anonymous juror says. So let me get this straight. Anonymous juror is now saying that another anonymous juror had violated the court order to not talk about the case. It doesn't matter if it's your wife. It doesn't matter if it's your cat or your houseplants or the delivery boy. Your OnlyFans AI girlfriend. You're not supposed to talk about it. And also, if this was genuinely a concern for this anonymous juror, then why didn't they bring this up to Auntie Bev? You just know she would have leapt at the opportunity to do something. Once the jurors recognized Carney in the courtroom, I don't know how they would have done that unless they already knew who he was. And if that's the case, wasn't that one of the questions that was asked during jury selection? If you know Aiden Carney, wasn't that one of them? Because he was on the witness list. She says they grew nervous. He would identify and dox them. Who's saying that? The anonymous juror or the wife? Or who the fuck are you talking about now, Gretchen? This is the problem when you take too many anonymous sources. None of it comes off as credible. You could just make anything you want up. He had done so to a juror, or you can conflate statements from one source with another to make you fit whatever narrative you're trying to tell. He had done so to a juror in a previous case in that same court. What case? What juror? We felt intimidated, she says, adding that about halfway through the trial, the jurors asked court officers to ask the judge to remove Carney from the courtroom. He was not removed. I think you'll actually find that it was Paulie Donuts who was the one to move seats because a juror had told the court that they felt uncomfortable with Paul O'Keefe's aggressive sexual stare downs at them and manspreading. So this is part of the Kitten Cover-Up series, I think part 545. And we found this out from the sidebars that were released however many months ago. Paul O'Keefe had been sitting in the front row, as he typically would, staring down Reed with his crotch open for the world to see, as he always did, and as we saw in the previous photo I just shared on screen. However, a juror had complained about Paulie Donuts looking at her in a sexual manner that made her feel uncomfortable, and Beverly Canola Oil told him he had to sit in the second row for the remainder of the trial. So the victim's brother made a juror feel uncomfortable and was moved. Not Aiden Carney. You might also remember after trial 1, the jury felt very intimidated by the presence of Big Daddy Butt Dial during closing arguments. Remember this affidavit? Because I sure do. This came after the mistrial in 2024, and it was a friend of a friend or a colleague who was connected to one of the jurors on the trial who had told them, I think in a group chat or something to that effect. The whole jury felt very intimidated by Higgins' presence at the end. And Higgins, as you know, wasn't in the peanut gallery for closing arguments, but Big Daddy Butt Dial was. Brian Albert was. So they had confused Brian Albert with Brian Higgins. The thick neck and the meat suits is difficult to distinguish the two. But now, I mean, there's a glaringly big difference between the two since Brian Higgins decided to try Ozempic. I mean, if looks could kill, Jack Frost over here would have you looking like a melted snow cone. Honestly, without any context, who do you think you'd be more intimidated by? With all due respect, the Lord of the Flies? Or this 200-pound mammoth who did a 28-year stint at the Boston PD, led the fugitive apprehension team, and essentially took a police dog as his pet before shipping her off to doggy conversion therapy.
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
So then Djuna Perkins, who is running for Norfolk County DA, enters the chat because I guess she saw this as a golden opportunity to take some cheap shots at Adam Deitch, who was also running for Norfolk County DA and was heavily featured in this hit piece. State sovereignty means that federal prosecutors should not interfere with state prosecutions unless the risk of not doing so would outweigh the potential harm caused. The failure of the federal and state government to protect victims, witnesses, and jurors makes us all unsafe because people who don't feel safe will not participate in the criminal justice system and perpetrators won't be held accountable. Like, who's your target audience with this, Dune? Anybody who will vote for you, you'll just take the vote. Deciding when the fine line between free speech and criminal harassment and witness intimidation / obstruction of justice is crossed requires a nuanced analysis of the evidence in each case. So I guess we have our answer there in terms of whether or not she would continue with the prosecution of Aidan Carney in the witness intimidation case. But when that line is crossed, the perpetrator must be held accountable. Finally, prosecutors are ethically and legally obligated to treat everyone, even suspected criminals, fairly and respectfully, to evaluate evidence thoroughly and impartially, examining it from all sides to ensure accuracy. It's like sitting on the fence doesn't do you any good. You're gonna hurt your butt after a while. You probably get some chafing in there too. Might need some baby powder. They are also prohibited from using the power of their position to gain personal advantage and from engaging directly with anyone represented by counsel, which would include Karen Reed and the estate of Sandra Birchmore. Violating any of these rules demonstrates inexperience, poor judgment, bad intent, or all three. As we've seen in recent cases, the DA has enormous power. Here's the clapback, folks. Respectfully, Djuna, this is a political cheap shot and beneath your dignity. You know nothing about the federal investigation, what evidence they had, how they investigated, and why they got involved. I had never met Adam Deitch before the Reed case, but I am supporting him in this race because he has displayed the ethics, judgment, and experience that are necessary. And just to note too, I don't think Adam Deitch has ever thrown shade at any of the other candidates. He's thrown plenty of shade at Mr. Meat Sweats in that entire office. Rightfully so. So have all of these other candidates, except for, of course, many Mr. Meat Suits, Greg Connor. In an office that featured festering incompetence and poor judgment, Adam is the breath of fresh air that is necessary to establish the office's credibility and commitment to justice, because this is also an office, too, that David Yannetti has to work with when he has clients, defendants. It doesn't just start and stop with Karen Reed. So yeah, this affects him as well too. So Either Jujubee is a Morrissey plant, or she's just butthurt that Adam Deitch has an endorsement from Karen Reed and Sandra Birchmore's family.
I am supporting Adam Deitch for district attorney because I feel he's got the background and the know-how to make the changes that we need in Norfolk County. I think he can bring it.
With that said, if you enjoyed today's content, make sure you hit that subscribe and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next video from me. Make sure you hit that like button or hype button, because that tells the YouTube algorithm I should continue to create more dreadful videos just like this for you. And if you want to watch videos like this completely ad-free, as well as get a running doc of all of the sources I use to create every single video, because I could not do any of this without any of the content creators or internet sleuths that are out there digging for the truth and sharing it. A lot of them using their own money and means, resources, time, and just sharing it all for free. So, and I just can't extend my gratitude enough. But if you want to get access to all of the sources from every video, you can become a member, become a official roomie, or you can become a hot corpse. You get early access to videos, you get one exclusive members only short every single week. So as always, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time.